To measure this stretching and squeezing, Ray turned to a device called an interferometer. A laser beam is split and sent down a pair of long perpendicular tubes, each precisely the same length. The two beams bounce off mirrors and recombine back at the base.
Yo, what up, Sir Edward?
The light waves come back lined up in such a way that
Is it
they
me or is the
cancel
frame
each
rate,
other
like,
out.
super low?
And you add them together, you get nothing. You get a zero, a big fat
Yeah, I'm
zero.
seeing that.
Yeah,
no
totally.
light
Yeah.
gets detected
Terrible.
at the photodetector.
Thanks for putting this on.
Oh yeah, dude. Thank Toby for bringing us all together, man.
So, I mean, that's like, I mean, it's really just showing a basic illustration of how an interferometer works. But the key being that you've got the one tool here that's shooting the laser, and then it gets split here. And when it comes back, the important part that they're explaining here is the way that the fringe shift or the phase shift is detected is based on how the light lines back up with itself, because it should be the exact same distance.
Yep.
And that's why they talk so much about how precise these devices have to be, because you're talking about the way that the light phases with itself. So it has to be really precise for that reason. This other little piece on the bottom right is just the sensor for detecting when the light comes back.
And sorry for the question, but what is fringe shift or phase shift? I think I've heard that 1,000 times.
Yeah, so
Space.
let me see
When a
if I can
gravity
find
wave
the-
Detected at the photodetector.
But when a gravity wave comes along, it distorts space and changes the distance between the mirrors. One arm becomes a little longer, the other a little shorter. An instant later, they switch. This back and forth stretching and squeezing happens over and over until the wave has passed. As the distances change, so does the alignment between the peaks and valleys of the two returning light waves.
This is what they're talking about. This right here. It's the waves of light, the way that they, because if both, going back to the like an overhead shot, if both of the light tubes or both of the tubes are the exact same length, then they should hit the mirror and come back at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And so
basically overlap one another.
yeah, so when you have the full wave of light here, and when it gets split here, you have two different phases of that wave, and then when they come back together, you can detect the differences in their phase. They would either it'll be just as bright as it was going in because the phase is the same, or it'll be like slightly dimmer because they're out of phase with each other.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
I'm putting some supplemental graphics in the text chat too, to complement what you're saying. So yeah, when those beams recombine, they shouldn't produce a fringe shift pattern if the speed of light is the same. It shouldn't produce any fringe.
Okay.
It should just cancel itself out.
That's awesome. Thanks.
So then we go to Michelson-Morley. I'm not going to get into the details, but so that was essentially the tool used in Michelson-Morley to determine you've got one of those light beams going, at one angle, and then you have the other light beam going, against the supposed rotation of the Earth or with? I'm actually not sure.
No, it was
or not
it was
the orbital.
Yeah, for that one, it wasn't rotational.
Direction.
It was supposed to be perpendicular to the direction of the path of the orbit. So,
but so then within that experiment, they got next to null result, but they did get a phase shift. So they said that the fringe shift that they did, or I was calling it like a phase out of phasing, but I don't know if that's quite the right terminology.
phase shift, fringe shift, you're good.
Yeah. So the fringe shift was there enough that something was happening, and then they tried to write it off as a null result, and then that's where Dayton Miller comes into the picture, and Dayton Miller came along and measured it literally millions of times, and he improved on the precision of the tool and accounted for every possible variable that he could, and still basically got written off by all of modern science for his entire career. And I have yet to hear a good explanation of what he did wrong. But
Yeah.
but am I right in understanding that he was still using a similar style of interferometer, just a more, he just kind of kept improving on that same style, right?
Yeah, so he actually had his own setup that he made, and he later inherited the Michelson-Morley device from 1887, the whole apparatus. So yeah, he used them both, and what was it? Edward Morley of Michelson-Morley. When Michelson and Morley split up, Edward went and was Dayton Miller's research assistant for years. So he actually did a lot of research with Miller as well. I didn't know about that, and then until recently. And then as I put in if you want to open that up, so what you'll see at the top is that that top curve line that's dotted is what they predicted the fringe shift pattern would result in being at like 5 fringes, and then for each one of those fringes, they had a scale set up where they were going to interpret that as 5 kilometers a second per fringe, or per, as it scales up. So they got like just over 1 fringe, and they were like, what do we do here? Because we need 4 more fringes to get 30 kilometers a second for heliocentrism to be true. So with the Lorentz contraction mechanism, or so-called mechanism, or mathematical mechanism rather, what they did is, like, you see how there's that little tiny fringe there at the bottom that they registered just over 1 fringe. Like all the other subsequent fringes above that, they're saying that like the contraction would be equivalent to bring enough of those fringes together to give you 30 kilometers a second. And they extrapolated all that from a fringe shift that's 1/6 of what they needed what they needed it to be. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, no, that's a great explanation. I just realized that I kind of screwed up. I left the there we go. I need to remove I was sharing my screen with the stream, but then I didn't remove it. Or I was sharing that video with the stream, but I didn't remove it. So now we can see the Michelson-Morley 1887. Cool. Yeah, so that's all good. So then moving on from there, now, so Miller had done millions of measurements, and then there's additional measurements that have been taken by others since then, including Ruyong Wang actually engineered his own ways to detect similar phenomena. He used, I guess I have to pull the doc up here because I can't really explain it very well. Or maybe he was able to detect it in a linear fashion using like a totally different setup, right?
Yeah, so he basically had a fiber optic cable, and he just set up a conveyor belt with it. So I can pull up what it looked like here in a second. Pull it up for you. Yeah, so like instead of like usually they have it like wrapped around something that rotates, and how, or encased in something like that. But yeah, he literally just set it up to make a conveyor belt out of it, and then where it like turns the most for the rotation around the little disc things for the conveyor belt. That's what they previously thought would only contribute to the fringe shift. But yeah, what Wang showed was that the linear segments also contribute to it. So like GG.
And then did he
So-
also did experiments with gyroscopes as well, right?
When no, he
No?
didn't
Okay.
do anything like that where he like repeated Dayton Miller or anything. He just took some like initial measurements and stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
So let's see if I can find the graphic for it. Yeah, right.
I know I have the one. Yeah, I have that doc somewhere. I can try to pull it up as well.
Right here. Yeah. So instead of having the cable wrapped in like a spool and then on something that rotates or whatever, like a lazy Susan or what have you, he set it up like that. And then whenever he would pull it back and forth, it would, the linear segments also contributed to the fringe. So like those, what is it?
So now,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. The blue segments, right?
so one thing I thought I understood, and then now I'm just trying to make sense of it going from to the actual device itself. How does this translate to angular motion specifically? Or I guess it's because it's orbital motion. What just doesn't even make sense. So they're able to bring this under the ground and get next to zero, right?
Not next to zero, but it's lower than what they would have got. So when Dayton Miller did it at 1,300 feet above sea level, I think it was, maybe it was more, I can't remember, but when he did it above sea level, he was getting readings between 8 and 11 kilometers a second, or from that scale, obviously. But just the fringe was just like slightly increased, so they got about double the reading of what Michelson-Morley got.
So I mean,
it's
that's
not. Yeah, so it's not that it like goes to absolute. It still shows, but the way that they do the experiments now, in a basement and all that, and changing the apparatus and stuff, it tends to zero, but they're still in effect, even with all the conditions that they try to facilitate to make it register an actual null.
so to try and relate that to an orbital velocity is kind of, especially when you consider the differences in altitude, try and relate that to an orbital velocity doesn't make sense because of the, I would say the, what's the word? The rate at which it increases and decreases doesn't align with what you would expect from an orbital velocity difference. Like it should. Okay, go ahead.
So for the orbital velocity for Michelson-Morley stuff, they completely abandon like that method of detection for the orbit, and they just strictly go, and that's where they use second order corrections, the Lorentz contraction and all that to just reify the orbital stuff. But when it comes to like a SAGNEC device or modern inertial guidance systems and stuff like that, they're all based on like the quote unquote SAGNEC effect. So like their interpretation of it is that they're explicitly measuring angular rotation due to Earth's, Earth's orbit around its central axis.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, so they tried to split the two types of the two types of apparatuses, where one's stationary and one's spinning. They tried to split those into two different categories, where one is for linear motion and the other one is for angular motion, because the orbital velocity would fall under like a linear translational speed, linear motion. So it should be absolutely detectable, but the fringe shift pattern they show doesn't correspond with what they need. So that's why they try and separate, make a distinction between the two experiments. But there was an experiment in the middle of all this called Michelson-Gale-Pierce, where it was a four-sided mirror setup instead of three or whatever they did for Michelson-Morley. I think theirs was a three. They might have been four as well. It doesn't matter. But anyway, they, instead of rotating the device and taking a measurement and then rotating it and then letting it sit, taking a measurement and all that, this device was just fixed. So and that detected the same fringe shift pattern as like what SAGNEC had detected. Basically just due to the a change in the speed of light relative to the latitude, which is explainable by how far away you are from the ether vortex, right? So like in the globe paradigm, they equate that to how fast you would be spinning relative to the latitude. But the Michelson-Gale-Pierce, and so if Michelson-Gale-Pierce detects circular rotation, if they want to attribute that to angular rotation, right, and SAGNEC is angular rotation, then they what is it? Then they can't use length contraction for the Michelson-Morley readings. It would have to be consistent with the Michelson-Gale setup. So there's no, the fact that they don't uniformly apply length contraction to all of them to explain it kind of gives the game away that it's bullshit.
Okay. Yeah. That definitely.
Because they're all the same experiment. I mean, like, the setups are different, right? But they're all conceptually the same. They're all detecting the same fringe. There's one's not detecting like a special type of motion and the other one detects a different type of motion based on its rotation. That was like a mythology that was put forward to, maintain the separation of the two so that people wouldn't get get onto it or whatever. But what Wang did in 2004 showed that any motion contributes to any motion of the observer, i.e., the apparatus or whatever moving, will contribute to the fringe shift pattern. So like that's game over in and of itself. Doesn't matter what direction it's spinning or if it's spinning at all or what direction the movement is. And then that's where you get into the separation of the two movements where it's faster going one direction, east to west, and slower going west to east. So what he found is that this is a directionally dependent effect, independent of angular rotation or linear motion.
So with the angular motion, I guess the difference that they get between like going underground and then bringing it up to a higher elevation, that can't be consistent with a like a imposed radius or diameter value of the globe, right?
Sorry, say that again.
So like I guess like I've heard, how is it that how do I explain this best? All right, if you were to look at the diameter, the imposed diameter of the Earth, the or the radius or whatever, I guess diameter, then you would use, or I guess you would use radius to determine your length from the core, and you could have a different velocity depending on how far you are from the center, right?
Yeah. So like at the equator, it'd be 1,000. At 45, it'd be about 750, and then at the North Pole, it'd be 0.
Yeah. So, is that? I feel like the ratio at which the interference changes doesn't seem to correlate with the diameter value, right?
No, it does in the northern hemisphere. That's the thing. So in the northern hemi, it does seem to have that relationship, but they don't provide any. There's no publicly available data or anything like that, because this type of experimentation would be like the premier hallmark of like globe proof. Like this would be what they would teach us in elementary school and stuff if these things existed, right? So they have no equatorial readings using the gyro, and they have nothing in the southern hemisphere as for, in regards to a single axis gyro or the or a multi-axis. Like they have no tilt correction angles, nothing available for us to decipher if the readings are symmetrical, because on a globe they would have to be symmetrical, right? So as you in the meaning that the north 45th latitude would be, the reading would be symmetrical. It would be the same as if you were in the south on the 45th, because it's just detecting it relative to the latitude, and we're on a ball that's roughly symmetrical. So like the reading shouldn't differ, and they only give us the first setup to complete the globe at the 45th latitudes. So for the publicly available data that I found for single axis gyros, there's 2 laboratories, one in Italy, one in Germany. They're both around the 45th latitude. Both of those correct their single axis device 45 degrees, meaning that they tilt the device, instead of it being like, laying on a table flat or something like that, they have it tilted up in the air facing Polaris. So they have a 45-degree correction angle to Polaris. Now on the globe, they say they're aligning it to the axis of rotation of the globe, which is like, okay, whatever. But on a flat Earth, and then with elevation angles to Polaris, mapping out the latitudes or whatever, at those latitudes, coincidentally, that would be the same correction that you would make to the device if you were going to line it up with the sky to measure the axis, to measure the rotation, like an ether vortex in the sky, right? So very, very. It looks like it could go either way on the globe there. Like it fits, either one. But they don't give the readings in the south. They don't have any experiments or data showing it or like how it difference. And they have all these like theorizations on like what the angles, would have to be and all that stuff. But they present none and show no measurements and no data for it to correspond to it. So what me and Witsa are thinking is that, as you get further away from the vortex, the angular momentum or the edge velocity, has to be faster to, complete the rotation. So we think that the readings actually pick up as you get further away from the equator, or further away from the vortex. Even like it never balances back. It never like reduces back down to be symmetrical with the globe.
Yeah. So you're saying with that, but what about specifically? Has anyone looked at correlating altitude with like the angular I guess would it be the angular velocity?
Yeah, so that was let's see, my boy here. So Dayton Miller started off with that, and then Yuri Galev in 2001 and in 2002 did experiments with radio millimeter waves, and he did it with optical radio bands, or so you could actually like see the fringe patterns as well. So he did it with those, and those were at altitude, and he actually reproduced Miller's effects corresponding to the equinoxes where the fringe shift patterns reach their minimum and maximum dimensions on the equinoxes to the day. And then there was Hector Manera, who did the same thing. He did in Pediometric. I don't know the word, how to pronounce it, but anyway, what that big word means is that they left the device running instead of like taking a measurement, turning it off, and then taking another measurement later and turning it back on and all that. They left it running all year around and got measurements, and fluctuations with that. And who was the other guy? I thought there was one more that reproduced Miller, but maybe not. Oh, was it? Oh, Pruner DeFore reproduced Nicholson-Morley as well in 1942. So, yeah, there's like a long history of them reproducing it, and then so like for the altitude specifically, that was reproduced by Yuri Galev.
I guess like what can we take away from the differences in the altitude? Like,
oh, that the translation of motion is coming from the sky, not the Earth rotating. If it was the Earth rotating, the detections would be stronger on the surface of the Earth, not vice versa. Like it completely refutes the globe and the interpretation of all of it. Like it's an insane body bag. That's why they won't touch it.
Well, that's why they said that Bob's data was wrong. That's not right. You misinterpreted it. The temperature changed because fluctuations at the same latitude at different elevations, it definitely would kill the whole globe model, right? That would kill it. It has to be the same at any elevation. But if it's Earth spin that they're actually measuring and not a translation or motion of sidereal motion of the sky transmitted down to Earth, then it has to be the same at every height, right? Unequivocally.
Let's try and explain it to like third grader level here. How is it that cannot be that the altitude change could not work with a globe, like the altitude change causing a difference in the fringe shift? I mean, I guess I can try myself.
What would be the mechanism to translate the motion? Because if the speed of light was invariant and the device wasn't like say like in an airplane or something, and it wasn't on the surface of the Earth, like what would translate the rotation with it? What would make it detect it?
Well, it would be the same thing, but like, wouldn't you get a higher rate of motion if you were higher from the core?
No, because it would be related to like the edge velocity of the surface of the Earth. Like if you were not on the Earth, you wouldn't continue to get a reading off of it, right? I don't think. I don't think it would be like a strong reading. Like it would get less and less. It wouldn't increase. As you got further away, you would get less of a reading, in my opinion.
Well, not necessarily. If let's say the medium was consistent, and let's say let's say if the medium was consistent, wouldn't you be moving faster? Like if you're thinking of like a clock hand, the further you are out on the hand, you're moving faster, right?
Yeah, but you're still attached to the device, though. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Oh yeah. No. Sorry, you said if the medium was connected. Yeah, if it was, then yeah, it would. But it's not, right? It's because if otherwise, flights would be shorter going in opposite directions and stuff. So they don't have like a mechanism to even claim that though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. But okay, I'm just trying to make sure it all makes sense to me. Okay. Thank you so much.
No, you're good, bro. Like it's good to hammer that stuff out too, because like I was thinking about it too for a minute. Like I don't know, like let's just try and work it out. But yeah, absolutely.
That's why I'm also thinking like I mean, because it went from, like Bob said, his measurements went from like it was like a 3 degrees difference or something like that, and like if it was somehow related to like what I was describing with like you're getting further outwards and you would be moving faster. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense with the globe. Well, no, because yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd have to look at the numbers.
Well, I mean, they're saying that they're measuring Earth rotation, right? That's the same claim with the pendulum. They say, "Oh, look, it denotes your latitude anywhere on Earth, depending on how this pendulum swings," which is another claim all by itself. But whenever they're making these measurements, they're saying, look at the rate at which we're measuring the Earth's spin beneath us." Right. So when they're using interferometry and like lasers and light dispersion patterns in which to do this, and then they get measurements at the same spot on Earth, but upward in latitude, they get different readings. How would you explain a different reading at the same spot for a different speed of a tangential spinning Earth beneath you?
You mean a different altitude at the same latitude?
Yeah. Yeah. What did I say? Sorry.
I think it's a different latitude, but
That's what I meant. Yeah.
go ahead, Napalm.
Is there an increase in rotation as you go upwards or a decrease?
There's an increase in the measured velocity or in the preferred direction of the speed of light.
Okay, increase in the preferred direction of the speed of light. So an increase in the fringe shift pattern that's being displayed, or if you want to translate it to like a ring laser gyroscope, right? If we're getting quote unquote 15 degrees per hour roughly drift, quote unquote, at the surface, is there an increase, meaning it goes up to like 16, 17 with the elevation, or is that kind of what we're saying?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that could actually that could be explained with the globe model though too, right? Because if you're saying that the atmosphere is in lockstep, therefore you are moving at the same rate, but you're further away from the surface, you should have a slight increase in velocity. But would it be the exact amount that they would calculate based on the globe model? Would be the question.
That's kind of
right?
my question too. Yeah.
So then we come down to what would be the globe's predicted increase in rotation?
Well, I don't know, man. I got people like Zanuck and Biodual like to narrow down their stance. Like, listen, if the measurement at this same latitude was different at different, like, no, it's not. It wasn't. It's wrong. It couldn't be. It's Bob. It's wrong. Like, okay. If all that was nonsense, if you did it right and you got a different, do you think that would be a problem for the globe model? And both of those people, once you drilled down it far enough, were like, absolutely, they have to do some rethinking. So I mean, like, I don't know.
Yeah, because I guess
Yeah.
in their model, it would be so insignificant, right? Just an increase in like, 10,000, 20,000 feet in elevation should be insignificant in their model as far as like the velocity measured.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So they do say, how Toby was saying the atmosphere is in lockstep or whatever. There should be no difference. And I'm actually remembering back to a conversation I had with fucking ScienceSat about it, and that's what he was pointing out, that there should be no change. And like he was saying that Bob was wrong, blah blah blah, and like based on that, but yeah, there should be no change at altitude.
So it should
Exactly.
just remain a 15-degree per
Whatever it
hour
reads on
drift.
the ground, whatever it reads on the ground relative to the latitude should be the exact same at at a plane's altitude or whatever, what have you.
Right. Because when you're talking about degrees, you're not necessarily talking about like a specific velocity like miles per hour or anything like that, right? So you're not
Yep.
increasing that. It should the rate should remain the same.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Now that we're fleshing that out, that definitely makes sense.
Right, that's what Bob claimed to have gotten in the first place. And I think so much so that he had to like release the actual data to show, because they were like, "Nah, I couldn't. You didn't change. Nah." And then when they did, they were like, "Well, temperature variations and fluctuations and like swamp gas came from Venus and it hit like a light and it looked like." And like,
The old Venus swamp gas, dude.
Yeah, but they kind of made any excuse they could to have that data be invalidated. So now when you bring it up, they're like, debunked. It's debunked. We've debunked it. We've looked at it. We've shown that it's impossible. But in reality, if those measurements are confirmed, then that debunks the globe. Most of them know that.
Yeah, dude, it was really interesting watching Xanax struggle the other night to like co-op what he, backtrack and co-op what was saying, and act like he was teaching it to him. It was insane. But it's like that's the degree at which they have to play, because this is the end of it.
That's the SOP for Xanac, man, is not knowing what he's talking about, but then reiterating back to you as if you don't comprehend what he's saying.
Yeah. But yeah, so Toby, did you have any other?
No, yeah. If you want to go ahead now and show us the presentation you put together, that would be sweet.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I came up with
Excellent.
a presentation for the etheric framework, and to kind of answer some questions about like, what is the ether? Is it physical? Is it in our imagination? Is it a unicorn fart in a jar? And what are we doing here? So let me see if I can present this without lagging on YouTube as well. From there, present screen. Do the full screen. All right, let me know if you lads can see this.
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so let me start us off here. Slideshow, beginning. Okay. So we have ether dynamics. This is the framework, or the etheric framework and the dynamics of the ether by your boy Space Audits. You can check me out on YouTube here, and here's a playlist to my videos. What is the ether? Is it physical or conceptual? Conceptual. The ether is both a framework of interpretation and a physical mechanism that interconnects all matter and motion in the universe via pressure mediation. Lorentz's ether theory and special relativity are mathematically identical theories. Einstein used Lorentz's mathematical framework of covariance and transformations too, only changing the conceptual interpretation of the mathematics from ether contraction and the direction of motion to length contraction and time dilation to conform the coordinate system to make C invariant under the conditions postulated by Einstein. So before we continue on here, all the old frameworks, everything, classical mechanics and all that, classical physics, all that was under an etheric framework, and it wasn't until Einstein came along and co-opted Lorentz's math framework and just changed the interpretation and said that you don't need a mechanism to facilitate any pressure mediation. The coordinate system itself will conform and provide that mechanism. Is what they're saying. Like even if nobody explicitly says that or talks about it that way, that's exactly what they're doing. So that's what it is. So the mediation for the pressure mediation is facilitated by the x-axis and the time axis contracting towards one another in a hyperbolic relationship to make C invariant. Okay. So let's see. We have a history of ether experiment proving that the framework of interpretation postulated and put forward by Einstein is incorrect. So we have, starting with 1881, actually, Michelson did his first experiment, but they said that the apparatus was too sensitive, and there was some errors, well, whatever. So then he did it again in 1887 with his boy Morley, and that's where they got their readings, and that's where this is like the most significant experiment in physics at the time, because this was supposed to confirm two theories. It was supposed to be like a measurement of the ether's effect on motion, and it was supposed to be confirmation of the Earth's orbit around the sun. And they didn't get a measurement corresponding to what they needed to confirm heliocentrism. So what they came up with was, they were like, okay, well, we got to keep the motion, obviously, because heliocentrism, yep. And we got to keep ether because that's how everything's worked up until now. So we just proposed Lorentz ether contraction, and basically the same mechanism as Einstein. And then in 1905, Einstein came along with special relativity and said there's no ether necessary. It's actually the physical reality contracts to in the direction of motion and all that, and of course time dilates, because if you're going to change that, the time has to dilate to meet c as well. So that's where they came up with all that. And then in 1913, Sagnac came around with his rotating interferometer and measured, the Æther wind through that. And because the device was rotating, special relativity had an out clause for it. They said because it's a non-inertial reference frame, the speed of light can vary. It's no big deal or whatever, even though they have circular deviations for things in special relativity, but not for something like this. Not like a direct refutation where the speed of light, the thing that they say is invariant, is directly shown to not be. So they were like, yeah, we don't want nothing to do with this. So later, when the general theory had been coming out, I think that was around 1915, 1916, something like that. A guy named Paul Lavue came up with a way to explain the angular rotation, or came up with a way to mathematically explain the Sagnac effect within the relativistic confines, saying that the angular rotation of the device, the energy producing that, is equivalent to a gravitational field producing length contraction and time dilation. So that's how they ended up co-opting it with that. But then in 1925, that's when Nicholson, Gale Pierce did their interferometry experiment, and they say that that the speed of light is relative, or that there's a change in the speed of light relative to the latitude from that device, and that they in fact measure Earth's angular or daily rotation. That they're saying that they measured the sidereal rotation of Earth up to 98% of a match with the sidereal scale, and there's no relativistic corrections required, nothing like that. So in fact, the framework that they use for the math, actually, I can pull it up real quick. Framework that they use is actually Galilean, and they assume like an absolute reference frame, an Æther frame, a fixed Æther frame, but just a fixed frame to measure relative motion against. And what they found was that the pipes going east-west had a change in their propagation relative to the ones going north-south. And that's what that whole thing was about. So there's no time dilation or anything in there. It's just basic a relative motion equation through what is it, like a Galilean system? Or yeah. So let's see. Okay, and then Pruner DeFore in 1942 reproduced Michelson-Morley. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead there. So after the angular rotation stuff, let's see, Michelson-Morley. So Dayton Miller, the whole time this was going on, since 1887 up to 1925, 1930, Dayton Miller was conducting a series of interferometry experiments using his own apparatus and later Michelson-Morley's own apparatus, reproducing the measurements and actually refining them to a degree where he found that he was measuring the fluctuation in the movement of the sun over a fluctuation in the Æther speed facilitating the movement of the sun, right? So if the sun is in the northern hemisphere, it has to move, it's moving at 15 degrees per hour, it's going at a certain translational speed. It's like we were saying earlier, when you're measuring the angular speed, the 15 degrees per hour, the translational speed can change, but as long as the 15 degrees per hour changes, like you wouldn't really notice, right? But to maintain the 15 degrees per hour, the translational speed has to increase, right? So when the sun goes into the southern hemisphere for the season changes, the translational speed has to increase. And that's what Dayton Miller was measuring. He was measuring that speed fluctuation change during the equinoxes to the day. So let's see. And then those results, of course, were reproduced by Yuri Galev in 2001 and in 2002 using radio millimeter waves and optical bands. And further from that, the previous angular rotation explanation for the Sagnac effect was, debunked in 2004 by Ruyong Wang, who linearized the effect, showing that the linear sections of a conveyor belt made out of a fiber optic cable contribute to the fringe shift pattern as well as the rotational bits. So there's no distinction between saying this type of interferometry doesn't measure the orbital velocity because it's a linear effect, and this interferometer measures angular velocity because it's a different type of speed or whatever, motion, right? So he said, or he showed that this effect is independent of that, and it's directionally dependent. So we have a long, rich history of experiments over the last 100 years, 120 years, showing that there's a variance to the speed of light and that the postulates upon which special relativity are built are not true in nature. So to continue to use them like doesn't make any sense. So to move on from the history of that, we're going to get into the frameworks of interpretation, right? So we have all this experimental evidence and everything for a variance of C, and Einstein says that, well, the coordinate system is actually changing in such a way that it's creating an illusion that C is changing, but C is, forever or whatever, right? So let's look at what postulates mean and like what they are, right? So postulations, Æther framework versus special or space-time framework. Citing the Great Soviet Encyclopedia, 3rd edition, volume 20, page 423, a postulate is a proposition that for some reason is accepted without proof, but is a rule with justification, and its justification that is the thing that usually serves as the argument in favor of the postulate. So we're going to step away from that previous methodology that's being used by current physics and theoretical physics, and the etheric framework will not be built on ingenious conjectures like that. Will not be built upon ingenious conjectures like special relativity was with Einstein and later quantum mechanics with no experimental evidence or physical meaning. So like the curvature of an abstract math equation, facilitating the mechanism for orbits, right? So like that's what I mean by like it has no physical meaning. Like we're not just going to make stuff up. Let's see. The postulation of the invariance of C serves the relativist only as a guide to redirect contradictory experimental evidence as nulls, or enabling them to use the abstract mathematical constructs to describe the phenomenon and avoid a deeper understanding of the mechanisms of the phenomenon. Such postulations, laws, and axioms lead to postulates that reify the original postulates, laws, and axioms in favor of disregarding new experimental evidence. So all experimental and observational contradictions reach conformity to the known existing theory that has been confirmed and is unquestionable. And you're actually crazy if you question it, allegedly. All right. Any questions so far? Anything before we move on?
That seems good to me.
All right, cool. The purpose of the etheric framework: to establish general laws to the mechanisms of the structure of matter. Science should have a unified goal in revealing the nature of the phenomenon, i.e., through the study and investigation and experimentation of the internal mechanisms of the studied phenomenon, and that should produce a cause and effect relationship between the material entities involved in the phenomenon and the that are based on the generalization of the framework. So let's see. Moving forward, I'll discuss the current methodology and postulations of special and general relativity, as well as quantum mechanics. And we'll just briefly touch on the quantum stuff, as it's not super relevant to what we're going for here. So the postulates of special and general relativity. The first postulates being all inertial reference frames are equally valid, and that there is no preferred reference frame. And 2, the constancy of the speed of light is independent of the source of the motion of this, is independent of the motion of the source or the observer. And then with the assertion of those two postulates, it gives way to additional postulates in the form of quote unquote principles that further supplement and reify the theory and explain things that are contradictory to it, such as, so with the implication here that all frames are equally valid and that there's no preferred frame, this is like a mathematical interpretation for measuring like relative speed, for example, right? So you'll hear in relativity, there's no such thing as absolute motion or being at rest and all that kind of stuff. And here from from this framework, that's exactly what they used. So what that means is like there's no preferred frame, is that like that thing that gives this accurate measurement. He's saying that you should be able to use any math equation relativistically to derive these effects, and like this shouldn't be only derived from this, right? From a relative motion standpoint. But it's in fact that relative motion standpoint that fixed frame, right? That's allowing us to make these accurate measurements that's showing the variance in the speed of light. But anyway, to continue on, so with these two postulates, right, he can further build upon that. And so like what these two things ultimately means is that there's no that the Æther doesn't exist. Like when they say Einstein abolished the Æther, this is what it this is like what this framework entails, because the mechanism to facilitate a variance in the speed of light would be the ether, right? So the permeability of the medium would facilitate its how fast it propagates through it, right? And what's going on within that medium, right? Like, is it in motion? Is it, I don't know, following the sidereal rotation of the sky? It's like all those things of the medium would affect it. And Einstein removed all that in the first two postulates. So from that, he's able to build additional things. So the ether doesn't exist with no mechanism to cause the variance of the speed. Einstein's third postulate says, that there is, and this isn't like an actual postulate. This is just, what reading in between the lines. He says that there's no ether. The fourth is the principle of simultaneity. Now, this is an actual principle that they supplement the theory with. The perception of whether two events happen simultaneously or not depends on the observer's relative motion. And this is falsified by GPS's global simultaneity. So we've all heard that, an observer in the middle of a moving train car, if lightning strikes on both ends at the same time, is he going to see this one, is he going to see the one in front of him first and vice versa and all that? And then you have the stationary observer on a platform not moving, who sees the lightning strike first and all that. So GPS actually directly contradicts all that, because all these events happen, simultaneously and relative to other observers, and it doesn't affect the accuracy of GPS at all. And because it's all synced to what's called GPS time, meaning that it's just a timestamp synced to the same time, all these events can happen in the same time, all relative to one another, and it doesn't affect any order of operations or anything in the way that Einstein needs it to be to further supplement his theory. So the principle of equivalence. So this was put forward to link the general theory to the special theory. So the historicity of the special theory is that it was like super confirmed and everything was going great, but it was actually falling apart from all the interferometry and the mathematical troubles that Einstein was having with establishing general covariance. So when he changed his math framework to absolute differential calculus, he put forward the equivalence principle, saying that gravitational effects are the same as acceleration. So with that, he was able to piggyback off of what they co-opted with Michelson-Morley, and how they were like moving forward with saying that Einstein was the shit and all that. So mathematically he linked them two together, and that's how he did it. So that's the equivalence principle. That's the jumping off point for the general theory. And then, of course, there's relativistic mass, which is as your speed increases, so does your energy. And if your energy increases, your mass increases, because mass and energy are equivalent in relativity. So if you're moving, you're weighing a different amount. 7, the general theory, Einstein reinstates that. Oh yeah, so later in like 1923 and 1924, in two separate books, Einstein says that the general theory without the ether is unthinkable. So like he reinstates the ether in the general theory because he realized that the angular momentum of the universe would affect the speed of light. So he was trying to like put that forward and get that out there, but literally nobody cared. Nobody picked up on it. Nobody, like, it didn't change anyone's minds. So they just kind of ignore that and act like Einstein never said it. But he did say that in two separate books. He did bring the ether back in the general theory. So postulations on the propagation of gravity matching C. So the coordinate system that's used to describe gravitation is that of a vacuum, and that is chosen because it has no permeativity, which is the epsilon symbol here, and no permeability, which is the mu symbol here, I think it is, or I can't remember. But anyway, so it can give the appearance of covariance, meaning that it's not going faster than the speed of light, so it's not an instantaneous action at a distance or anything crazy. So like they did it to make it seem like it was all on the up and up, with their general understanding that nothing is faster than the speed of light, and that the gravitational effects actually match that. So when this was pointed out by Stephen Crothers in a review that he did of LIGO's so-called readings, the LIGO, the large interferometer, what is it? I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, their thing is that they're measuring gravitational waves that are rippling through space-time that happened from an event 11 billion or 11 million years ago. I can't remember. And so the framework of which they came up with to interpret what a gravitational wave is and all that stuff, they just arbitrarily chose a coordinate system that would reflect something that would verify heliocentrism and make it seem better. So what Stephen Crothers showed in his paper in Appendix A, he goes down and does different coordinate systems for for a gravitational wave. And when you use a coordinate system that accounts for permittivity and permeability, well, the speed of propagation changes. So it's literally just an illusion facade to to make everything appear on the up and up. And they literally chose a coordinate system to make their assertions match. So and that's what that it's just an arbitrary coordinate system, and that's what Stephen Crothers showed. So general covariance under any transformation for the laws of physics. This is facilitated by absolute differential calculus, which when you swap in the initial or the boundary conditions, you can get any result that you need. So if you want to make something covariant, if you want the laws of physics to transform properly and give the appearance that you're doing mathematics correctly, you can just swap out these different tensors and get the desired effect. So to recap, without any mechanism to facilitate the required energy exchanges for the wavelength and frequency changes and the lack of ability to describe motion via pressure mediation, the space-time coordinate system XYZT must curve and warp to enable the mediation of motion and direction, which is how they say geodesic paths work. So they say that a gravitational field distorts space-time curvature around it, and everything's traveling in a geodesic, which is a straight line, but it's actually traveling along that curvature of space-time due to the gravitational field. So they just kind of obfuscated the old pressure mediation mechanical mechanism and just said that the coordinate system itself is like facilitating that from a fourth dimensional perspective, where if you were outside of the system, you would see that all these things are actually moving in straight lines. But from their perspective, on the surface of the Earth, et cetera, it looks like stuff is moving in circles above us. That's literally how they explain it. It's insane. So while there is no ether in Einstein's special and general theories, even though he added it at the end, the abstract math used to describe the space-time intervals serves as a medium that facilitates the motion, i.e., an emergent property of space, time, and matter in the mechanical interactions therein. Postulates for quantum mechanics, super boring. It's all dog shit. It's all based on stuff from Einstein in the special theory. It's just more postulations that don't require any experimental things to be true. Just a framework. Anything outside of these postulates. Actually, in addition to these 6, there's actually like 6 more that they added on. So they just keep adding stuff. Breeze through that. So to get into how the etheric framework will differ, I kind of came up with some guidelines here and been reading and talking for a while. So if you guys, let's see, how long is it been?
There was a couple things at the end of the last frame. I don't want to derail this conversation too much, and I think it would, but we should come back to them later on, maybe like another day.
Which ones?
Maybe. Point 8, the LIGO.
Yes.
I'd love to talk about that more later, but
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like it would maybe derail this conversation a bit.
No, it's actually super relevant to it. We could touch upon it at the end. I actually just covered it the other night on a stream. I can pull up the papers and stuff and show you what he was talking about. Because it was really fascinating to show this whole gravitational wave thing. And he's like, yeah, it's just they just chose an arbitrary coordinate system to fit what to reify what Einstein says. It doesn't mean anything because when he shows it under different coordinate systems, the speed changes. So it's GG, it's just some stuff they made up. And then they used the vacuum system, the coordinate system described it as a vacuum, so that there would be no permittivity and permeability to change to give variance to the speed.
Sweet. Thank you. That was a great re-explanation. I think I just needed to hear it again.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we'll read through some of the etheric framework guidelines here. So the primary aim of natural science is to uncover the underlying mechanisms of cause and effect relationships that govern the phenomenon and leading to the discovery of the general laws. The general laws governing the structure of nature. The existence of an internal mechanism implies determinism, implying causal connections between material entities. 2, acknowledgement of causality prompts exploration into the fundamental interactions within the phenomenon, which can only occur through direct contact at a shared point in space. This contradicts the notion of long action at a distance, emphasizing the principle of close action close action in the organization of matter. 3. Objects and phenomena are multifaceted, demanding that their representations, whether mathematical, verbal, graphical, just remain approximations. Continuous refinement of physical models and mathematical descriptions is necessary in enhancing the understanding of the fundamental relationships within physics, which capture only partial natural regularities, stands as a crucial task in theoretical physics. Prior to employing mathematical and quantitative descriptions, qualitative models of objects and phenomenon must be constructed. These models should elucidate qualitative aspects, breaking them down into understandable parts and their interactions, drawing analogies to familiar entities and justifying their relevance in specific scenarios becomes crucial in this process. 5. When constructing general physical theories, defining physical or universal physical invariants, i.e. categories unaffected by transformations and interactions, is crucial. These invariants should be derived from a comprehensive analysis of known interactions and phenomenon, chosen based on their presence in all aspects of nature. Selections of these invariants must correspond to their ubiquity in all material entities and natural phenomenon. So 6. Categories incompatible with universality cannot be true universal physical invariants. Concepts like fourth dimensional space-time metrics and the invariance of the speed of light declared as such in Einstein's theory of relativity are inappropriate examples. Extending electromagnetic ideas to gravity and the general theory, claiming that it is the theory of gravitation, is even more misguided, given the disassociation between gravitation and electromagnetic phenomenon. 7. A comprehensive analysis of all the interferometry and stuff and all the known stuff that we've done before all this. This is what we're referring to. A comprehensive analysis reveals that matter, space, time, and motion are pervasive categories serving as universal physical invariants. These fundamental concepts exhibit qualities: omnipresence, primordiality, preservations under transformations, infinite indivisibility, and linearity. This entails characteristics like Euclidean space, which means that space can't be described as something that's curving in on itself or anything like that. Uniform unidirectional time, meaning that there's no time traveling or time dilation or anything like that. Eternal and indestructible matter. Let's see. So just like you can't destroy or create properties of matter and energy and all that. Let's see, and the perpetuity of the universe, static dynamic, is filled with a medium that interconnects all mechanical processes involving movement and matter in space. And then 8. Properties of universal physical invariants demonstrate that there are no favored scales for motion, matter, space, and time across both the macro and micro levels of matter. So right now, how we have this division between space-time gravitational effects and the quantum effects. So the small scale and the macro scale, right, are incompatible. So this theory, shouldn't fall apart like that. It should be fine on both scales. The historical progression of nature. 9. The historical progression of natural science has been centered on delving into intricate hierarchical arrangements of matter. The subsequent development stage introduced the concepts of new, smaller material entities with fewer forms and interactions. Matter's structural organization extends infinitely through the hierarchical levels, both deepening and ascending, while the total hierarchical levels in matter, space, and time and motion are infinite. Individual processes are confined to a finite amount of these properties. The limitations also affect the propagations of the fields and interactions in space and time. 11. The principles of ether dynamics methodology aligns with the tenets of dialectical materialism, meaning that science is never settled, and that you don't ignore contradictory experimental results if they don't fit the theory like you do in idealism. There should be like a balance between the two, right? Let's see. All right, and then to talk about the four physical invariants, to add to the framework. So matter, no direct quantity of matter has been found thus far. Previously, mass was considered an indirect but strictly proportional measurement of the quality of matter in classical physics, i.e., weight equals mass, no relativistic scaling. If you're in motion or have energy, etc., you're not, weighing less or more. Time, units of time corresponding to physical quantities can be taken as units of measurement. Example, units of time in seconds, hours, minutes, etc., can be representative of 1 day. 1 day is 24 hours, and then you could break that down into 60 minutes in an hour, and then 60 seconds in a minute, and all that. So space, independent of time, matter, and any condition of the phenomenon occurring within it. Oh, I'm sorry. Space is independent of to time and matter, or any condition of the phenomenon occurring within it, i.e., matter inside of space does not distort space such that it then affects time or the matter itself, i.e., orbital trajectories based on space-time curvature and all that kind of stuff. And then we got motion here. So we have an emergent property of matter, time, and space an emergent property of matter, time, and space is the motion of matter through time and space. An interconnected framework allows the explanation of motion without action at a distance. This returns us to the older ideas of motion in the classical sense, mechanical interactions facilitated by pressure mediation. The basic properties of the four universal invariants, space-time, matter, and motion, have a presence in all structures of matter and phenomenon. Covariance, the four universal invariants must be invariant under transformation. So when you transform to another coordinate system or describe like the macro to the micros, that kind of stuff, the space, time, and matter and all that stuff doesn't change. Let's see. Absent of any preferred scale, i.e. the math doesn't break down on the macro or the micro level, mathematically the framework should be able to describe all levels of the organization of matter and any phenomenon with no special qualifications. So there's not a special theory of ether dynamics and a general theory. There's just one, right? So the manifestation of the ether framework, we're almost done, guys, I promise. The manifestation of the ether framework.
No, keep going, man. No rush.
I thought that might have been like a little much to read through all that.
No.
Be a little dry.
It's great. It's good stuff.
All right. Manifestation of the ether framework in physical reality. From these properties of invariance, the properties of our real world must follow with the same necessity. One, the indestructibility and uncreatability of matter, space, time, and motion. Only transformed, you cannot destroy or create what exists eternally. Two, Euclidean space, no curvature or distortions of the coordinate system used to describe space. Three, evenness of the passage of time, so no time dilation, no fluctuation, none of that. Four, infinite divisibility of matter, space, time, and motion. So fractal scaling. So that's what will help facilitate the micro and macro levels of phenomenon not breaking down. Five, the presence of matter, motion, and all of the small presence of matter and motion in even the smallest volume of space, i.e., there's no such thing as a vacuum. There's no such thing as there's a spot where there's there's nothing going on. Like they say, space is and all that. Seven, the hierarchical organization of matter, space, and the processes in time. So a cohesive chain of events. So you can't have something that breaks, like a time traveling situation where you're your own grandfather kind of thing or whatever. None of that stuff. Let's see. The following fundamental positions follows from the above. Since there is nothing in the world but moving matter, all physical interactions have an internal mechanism that can be reduced to a mechanical interaction, i.e., the movement of matter in space and time. And to close out on that, we have in 1922, Fourier concluded, however comprehensive mechanical theories may be, there is no way for them to be applicable to thermal effects, Heat belongs to a special category of phenomenon and cannot be explained by the laws of motion and equilibrium. And then he was later disproven 40 years later by Boltzmann, who showed that thermal motion is a kind of mechanical motion. So despite the confident announcement by Fourier that mechanical motion cannot explain thermal effects, 50 years later, Boltzmann showed that heat is a kinetic motion of molecules, and the modern physical theory is mistaken in believing that these fundamental interactions cannot be reduced to a special kind of motion or matter. All right, and that's the end of the presentation.
Ooh, I want to go.
What's up, Leaky?
What's
What's up, Al? What's up, Shane? Yeah, I just want to say real quick. I'll keep it brief because I know everyone probably wants to comment. But yeah, when they reduced, like, took time out of being a constant, they just pretty much opened the rules up to whatever the hell they wanted. All the invariants, like you got time, space, distance, and size, whatever, motion. Like they just took time out of being a constant, which made everything, by making light the constant, they've just made their own rules, basically.
Yeah.
And then it's just ridiculous, dude. But time's always been a constant. Even in quantum mechanics nowadays, they've reintroduced time as being a constant. So everything in between, everything in reality, and everything provable, time's a constant, except for off in the galaxies and universe where light's a constant. Ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what they did. Being able to conform the coordinate system, they could describe any phenomenon to meet C and then describe it through that mechanism of, time dilation, gravitational effects, curvature of space-time, etc.
Yeah. If it doesn't fit, we'll bend it. If it doesn't fit, we'll just bend the shit.
Yep.
Well, and don't forget, like, that doesn't work, right? Like, they say that they can do that, but then they have problems with GPS when they try to say that it doesn't conform, and then they use C as an invariant covariant transformation, and they go, well, actually, hold on real quick, look over here, will I do some more adjustments for the side effect? It's totally an invariant transformation, though, trust me, and kablam, here we go. There it is, like, on the new coordinate system with the same value of C. Like,
well, as long as there's people like you guys to point it out, then it doesn't work. But if nobody's paying attention to the shit, it works perfect.
Right.
When they're testing the speed of light, they're using these very controlled, very, very short distances. And then what they're doing is they're extrapolating that rate of induction, or basically they receive the transmission, and then they say, oh, okay, well, that's what we would get over distance.
It's way worse, bro. It's way worse.
It's just horrible.
Literally, what they do
horrible because they need to verify over distance and through different medium to even make that claim, but they never do that.
You're right, but listen to what they did, because at all the conventions, and this is one of the main TED talks that one of the banned TED talks, is at all the conventions where people brought in their measurements when they started getting interferometry accurate, like in a few decades ago. And up to a couple decades ago, literally what they did is they literally maintained the speed of light and made the meter invariant. What a trick is that? Who would have ever guessed that if I didn't see it with my own two eyes and hear from the guys who they literally got together and adjusted the length of a meter according to the speed of light. So instead of all the different speeds of light that these people are reporting from all over the world, varying just a tiny bit, right, year to year, but it's not much, so the meter sticks are not going to really change, but they literally changed the fucking meter stick. So the meter is dependent now on the speed of light. What a fucking joke.
Well, they can move anything as long as it's not the speed. As long as it's not the constant, they can move everything else, which is totally ass backwards.
It's important to get this information out there, dude. That's why I love what Alan and Shane are doing, man. And whoever else. I'm kind of new to the group, but but them two mainly, and whoever else is this.
Yeah, dude. Actually, like
people who hear us, dude, and hear y'all.
I think I've become an expert at publicly claiming credit for Alan's work. I'm really good at it.
You see, I gave you a shout out in my video, right? I had to include you in my video, bro, because you introduced me to Alan, so that's worth something, bro.
Dude, I'll take that. That I did. I brought Alan around and was like, I stamp of approval this dude. He's around now. And everyone was like, cool.
Bro, it's hard to understand. You literally have to read this shit 10 times. I mean, I'm not trying to, I'm being humble. Like, I literally have to hear this over and over to understand it. But once you do start reading it over and over and over, and you make sense of these equations, it's like, dude, it's so obvious once you put it all together, but it's hard to understand. You do literally have to hear it and hear all the information. And Alan is gifted in that aspect where it clicks with him. He can make sense of it to the layman. That's not easy.
Yeah, it's also hard to present it and like get through it to different groups of people and to present it over and over again. Like I only think that I've learned it because I've listened to him present each part like 3 to 4 times, so that I've heard it enough where it actually is, sinking in, and now I understand it. But repetition, I think, is definitely key.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Karen B was talking about that a couple Glowbusters episodes ago. She was like, "Yeah, just keep repeating everything, especially if it's like a hard concept or something that's like new. Just keep making videos about it, keep repeating it. Don't worry about being repetitive, because people are only going to learn it through repetition, right?" And that's exactly how I learned it. Like I just literally had to beat my head into these PDFs until I forced them to make sense to me and give me all their secrets.
So you're saying your 3-hour ball buster fuck you presentation that you wanted to make actually has to be a series of 5 to 8 minute things so people can
That's
digest
funny,
them,
dude.
like we
That's
said
so
from the
funny.
beginning. Oh, that sucks.
That has slowed me down. That has slowed me down, bro, because I finally just couldn't handle it no more. I had to point out the nonsense, dude. Dude, but it slowed me down in my actual progress. But yeah, that's a hell of a good point. But you gotta stop and point that shit out here and there, dude. Like, what the fuck, dude? We're getting lied to, man. We gotta point it out, man. And straighten it out one way or another. I had to point that out. We got a whole subject we can't even bring up to a big crowd of us. Like, these are my brothers, dude. Austin's not my enemy. Nathan's not my enemy. And I'm like,
Oh, are you talking
dude, I'm
about the
like,
Ether crew and how those people don't want to
yeah,
talk
dude.
about
I'm
things
like,
that they don't
How
understand?
about we
yeah,
just stick to the topic instead of
yeah, we
Yeah.
will. We will, man. All right, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I mean,
Yeah. You know what? You go ahead and censor me like they fucking censored you. Go ahead. No problem.
Well, no,
I'm
man.
not trying to censor you. It's just why devolve the conversation. Like Alan just presented a ton of information.
Well,
which is
it's
awesome.
like a think tank, right? It's a think tank. So what can we do to get this information out to our brethren who
Well,
it's being censored? To me, it's all under the same tent, right? And so, am I going
Yeah,
to do
dude.
this
It's like
alone? Are you going to make me do it alone, bro, and
censored
shut me
though.
the fuck up? That's kind of fucked up, bro. That
no,
you're going to
no
make me go
Dude,
about
Dude,
this
what are
one's
you
gonna
alone.
shut you
talking
up,
about,
Hey, wait
Brian.
a
Brian?
minute.
We're
Wait a minute.
all, we're
Let me
all out there
explain
on the
something.
line taking the same shit as you are.
What
We're
are
all
you
in the
doing?
same boat, man. It's all good. But hey, dude,
Hey,
why don't we put
yeah,
that PDF that Alan just read? Why don't we drop that in chat, and then everyone can like take that and read it and go do your everyone can do presentations on it and take
Yeah, I
it
dropped it
apart.
in there already, actually. So right above the sleepy kitten.
Which has been on the stream for like 20 minutes. Someone else say something. All right.
Yeah, drop some stuff in chat. Come on, y'all.
I'm a big fan of Sleepy Kittens.
Ether is not amused, guys. Do better.
I can make a comment
Shit
that will
work.
bring that'll make. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm in the store right now, but can I be heard?
Yeah.
Yes.
As far as
mic
like,
working at all?
yours is, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I was just gonna say, Brian, I don't think anyone's trying to censor you right here. We were just talking about like trying to get back to like what Alan was saying before we lose concentration on that. But on that note, as far as the taking appreciation for bringing people in and your appreciation for the model builder guy I just had over at Geo's. If anyone gets a chance to go back and listen to that, it was great. I found this guy because he was talking about interferometry over at 24/7. And so I jumped in and started talking to him about it. And then they got like a mod to come in there because it seemed like we were going the Æther route. But it's interesting that there's a lot of people that might be left without this knowledge if they just stick to that like strict, we have to have everything be under the scientific method, which the Æther can't really be because it's everywhere and it's basically everything. So it's just an interesting topic. We should get focused on that for sure.
Are you saying that you were over at 24/7 talking about interferometry, and they've equated those scientific measurements to nonsensical ether? That's weird.
Exactly. Yeah. The French guy. Did you hear about him? Or I sent you
No.
some info. But this guy, Alan and I talked to him over at your channel at ADL for a couple hours, and he like totally gets it. He like made this program that shows the curvature of the Earth exactly what it should be with his own data points. He wrote every line of code for it, and he shows like the difference in what we see compared to what the curve should be. And then he did this whole thing where he downloaded 2 million flight data GPS pings, like for 2 million flights. He had all the information, and they cut him off, and they banned everybody from that site from getting the data, almost like they saw that he was doing it. And he plotted it all out and showed like the exact routes that they take back and forth, and it does not match the Great Circle routes, to say the least. So he's like a total flat earther and totally gets it, right, Alan?
Dude, that's not the first time. That's not the first time New Perspective has brought some bright minds around. You know, like I'll give him credit for that, bro. This dude is he's working on it, dude. Like us, we're fucking working on it. We ain't sitting back listening. Well, some of us are, but we're working on it, man. We're working on the progression, dude. New's good at scouting people like that. This dude, he's plotted a shitload of data, dude. It was you got to go back and listen to the conversation, dude. It's awesome. It's
I'm good at promoting other people's work. Well, wasn't he awesome, Alan? I was trying to get you in the conversation about him. Wasn't he great?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, he had a wealth of knowledge, man. It was awesome talking to him. I can't wait to see how his GPS stuff develops, because he was basically saying he thinks that he could reverse engineer where they have like the ground stations at, like the actual location. Because when you zoom in on the data, you can see like the divergence and convergence around specific points of where these planes are traveling. So like directly goes back like line of sight to where the propagation started from. It'll be interesting to see like the whole grid they have set up. It's just a bunch of stationary towers. Were you saying something, Shane?
Yeah, I totally forgot.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to at least take the case without dogging, without dogging anybody else out. Without dogging anybody else out, I'd like to at least state my case. So I learned about natural science, right? I learned about natural science, and I didn't know it was in conflict with some of my other research. I really didn't. It took a couple years, right? I was learning it, and I learned that the photoelectric effect. First I learned that natural science is proves or disproves the hypothesis. Independent variables natural as the cause, and the dependent variables the effect, the natural phenomenon, and all that. And then I learned that because I always thought that the argument was that what is light? I always thought it was ongoing, that it was either a light, either a wave or a particle. That's what I've always thought, and I just accepted that. I didn't know that it was in conflict. Okay, so I learned that dude, science has already proven. Experiment, the photoelectric effect, that experiment was proven, and the Compton scattering. Einstein got the Nobel Prize, and then Compton scattering, that experiment. So I thought, okay, well, they've proven it's a particle. That didn't really make sense to me, but now it's kind of co-inflicting with my fucking worldview. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? It's proven a particle by experiment. Like, how can I argue with that? So I'm scared to fucking voice it out. But then I'm looking at all this other data, and I'm realizing that they've literally conceded the fact that it's a fucking wave with particle-like behavior. And I'm like, how come this ain't being talked about? Okay. And then I try to bring it up, and I'm being fucking censored. Like, and then you're telling me this, trying to talk about Michelson-Morley, just interferometry in general. I'm sorry I called it an experiment, but how about the fucking measurements? Because interferometers are the most accurate shit that we have. And then I'm censored and called a parlor trick. So I shut up, dude, until a couple other people start voicing it. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I thought the same thing. Like, fucking, what's a pump? Like, it's not a parlor trick. It's fucking a tool, So who cares whether it's science or not? Then I fucking go back and listen to the shit that I learned previous, okay? And I'm not going to just dog somebody individually, but I do hear that, verify again that it's been scientifically proven. Then I go on a show and I ask a man, because he asked me what's my hypothesis for Mickelson-Morley, and then I say, he cuts me off when I say it's the stars moving. I was going to say, due to the ground, he cuts me off, doesn't even let me say my whole full hypothesis, and so I just shut up. He's like, "Thank you." Okay. Then 10 seconds later, this this guy, he freaking whoever he says that it's proven a particle due to the photoelectric effect, that experiment, and Compton scattering, another experiment. I asked him, "Well, what's your hypothesis?" He just asked me and shut me the fuck up. So I asked him, "What's the hypothesis?" And I was being genuine. I didn't know that there wasn't one. He's like, "Well, it's not science; it's a demonstration." And I'm like, "Holy fuck, dude!" And I heard him admit it one other time. But then I've heard him say that it was an experiment a gajillion times, dude. But here's the problem, and I'm sorry to try and talk about somebody indiscreetly behind their back, is they were teaching me wrong for years. I've literally got videos bashing fucking Bob, and I'm ashamed of it, dude. I'm literally ashamed of myself for not fucking listening to Bob, hearing him out.
No offense, I feel like we got back off the topic.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, so I just posted a couple of videos exposing the horse shit so we could get it back on track. And I'm not gonna concede that everybody over there is dumb crackers. Like, no, they just don't know they're being lied. I was in the same shoes. This is a think tank, and I feel like it's gonna take a group effort, to expose the lies. Aren't we here all to find the truth? Because Alan has done a magnificent amount of research. Shane promoting it, and everybody else commenting and adding their, Dicelo, as far as like putting us on to it in the first place. He's one of the key components, dude. Everybody in here, dude. And it's like, dude, I mean, I'm trying to spread it to my own people, my brethren, and not look at them like the enemy. And that's why that's why I'm making these videos. And I just trying to point out the horse shit, man. And it was QE, dude. Sorry to pinpoint the name, bro, but that's who caused all this division. I've never pointed fingers in this fucking community. I've never, but it's directly this guy who thinks he's got scientific evidence for God, which if you believe in God, faith should be enough. But and then but anyway, that's all I got, man. Sorry, I would appreciate some backup in this movement.
Yeah, how about some friendly advice from some backup is stop going over to 24/7 and listening to QE say anything.
I don't go to
solve it.
I literally don't go over there.
And that'll solve it, right? So that dude's lost. It's okay.
Yeah. So Toby.
Yeah.
Did you want to see the what's it called? Oh, sorry. Before I get to the LIGO thing, I linked a video. So Brian earlier was talking about the wave particle duality and the double slit and the photoelectric effect and all that. So I linked the video. This woman, she's a academic person. I think she's got a PhD or a master's or something like that. She's in.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, she did a double slit experiment herself, and she was like, "Yeah, that's definitely not a wave like this." So she completely changed her whole outlook and interpretation on it because she came up through.
Or definitely not a particle. You mean
academia, where this wave particle, not a particle, where she's like, her whole worldview was that there was this wave particle duality, and then she did the experiment herself at home, bought the stuff, and did it herself, and then realized, like, yeah, it's definitely not a particle.
She did it in real time too, dude. She literally tried 100 different things, bro, and she finally spent the money necessary to get the dry ice, and directed the light through one of the slits, and it was like diffracting to the other, bro. And no matter what she did, all she ever got was that, dude. It's just the only thing. It's in the hypothesis, bro. The wave function is literally fucking math, and if you do the math and you square the negative, you're always gonna fucking collapse, bro. It's simple fucking mathematical trickery, just like all the other shit, dude. It's but she's like pointed out, she showed it literally in her videos that it's fucking it's diffraction, bro. It's just like every other fucking wave. It compounds and then cancels, dude. Just like every other wave in fucking nature, dude. It's not a secret, bro. Ridiculous.
Hey, Brian, real quick. I think we went over this when I was talking about coming over here from Geo's channel, and I think you said that it's like it was an argument between the wave and the particle, but actually right now it seems like the concentration is that it's the difference between that calling it a photon, or if with ether cosmology or ether understanding, you would think that it's not a photon, not a particle, not a wave. It's that the light's already there, and it's just exciting the potential through the propagation.
Right, it's not an actual wave. Right. But that's where it gets into it, dude. Where you got to say it's not actual wave. But here's the opposite side of that is where you can't even actually call it a particle if you're a materialist. You've got to say, if you're going to follow follow it to a natural conclusion, the fucking photon doesn't exist until it hits the plate. And if you're going to go by that, you have to literally say it doesn't exist at all, going through the slits after it's fired until it hits the plates. That's the hypocrisy of this all. Nobody's looked into this like I have, bro. And if you look into the claims, so we're claiming that it's not technically a wave, just like they're having to claim it's technically not even a fucking particle. And but people are only hearing one side of this, dude. And I think we got a lot of brethren out there, dude. If they heard the truth, man, they would be in helping us progress. You know, is all I'm saying, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like it'll get out, dog. You can't contain this stuff forever. Like it's out. Like
Yeah, I'm
It's
gonna make
been
sure of
putting
it,
it out,
bro.
and I'm putting it.
I'm gonna make sure of it.
Everyone, like, yeah, it's getting out. Like So
yeah, everyone does
but
their
yeah, so
part,
to
man.
touch on. Yep, to touch on the wave particle duality and mathematical trickery, I posted a screenshot from a presentation I did on how math met reality, or how your math met reality, or whatever. So this is what about the photon? So like this is how they describe vacuum propagation. So what they have here with the equation is they just made a reification fallacy where they use a reduced Planck's constant where they times it by pi to reduce it to reduce what they describe as what would be the physicality of the photon, which is required for it to propagate through a vacuum. They describe that they have it scaled in such a way that however much energy is scaled into it, it always scales to zero through the this little like weird H symbol here. That's the reduced Planck's constant that takes the photon.
You're right. Is it just me, or is he breaking up a little bit?
No, I was essentially
So it
because
takes
his
it to
internet
zero.
fixed. He's been breaking in and out the whole time. It's been way.
Yeah, but he's right. He's right, dude. They literally named that the ultraviolet catastrophe. They literally, this is the first time they've ever admitted. We all know that, like with common sense, that they already had the number they were reaching for with Newton and with the Kepler and all that. They and with the big G, they knew what number they needed to achieve when they were fucking scrutinizing the fucking model. And this is the first time in history that they literally admitted with the ultraviolet catastrophe and Planck's constant, they would just use the math. Like I've studied this in depth, dude. They admitted, and not many people know this, that they just used the math to get the number they needed because it's not supposed to keep gaining in energy. If you do the math, it shouldn't keep gaining in energy once you get past infrared light, dude. It's ultraviolet and then gamma, X-ray, and all that. So they find, and it's too modern. So there was too many people in on it. So they admitted it's just the mathematics and it's just a model. And they named it the ultraviolet catastrophe, which is something that more people should know about. So Alan is spot the fuck on, dude.
Yeah. Hey, continue on, Alan.
Yeah. So how if people want to claim that there's a physicality to the photon, the E equals HV equation has no time variable in it. So the photon is actually, the physicality of it would be proportional to the length of its existence and its frequency. So for example, a photon that exists at 3 hertz for 1 second would be 300 million meters long, roughly. So it would be like the physicality of it would be like the distance from the surface of the Earth to the moon in the heliocentric model, right? About 300 million miles. So like that's crazy. Like there's obviously no physicality to it at all. It's purely mathematical in a conception. Because as pointed out in the math, the reduced Planck's constant takes the energy, the physicality of it, which is required to propagate through a vacuum. It takes that and scales it to zero. So it actually has no physicality, and then to to get into the time variable situation with the E equals EF equation, that's a huge problem in quantum mechanics as well, because it all stems back from what is it? Who's the guy that Max Planck, who did the black body radiation? He solved for that curve or whatever, but the curve that he solved for was from a data set that was only 1 second of time. So everything defaults to that 1 second. So if there's no time specified, it's just proportional to the existence of, of the wavelength, right? So like if it's
Right. And if you multiply that times the frequency, then you're all you got to do is just figure out what works, multiply it times the fucking frequency, and label that the energy, and fucking ta-da, right?
Boom, ta-da. Yep, and that's exactly what they do. So to kind of touch real quick on let's see, electrodynamics, magnetism, where was it? Electromagnetic theory. So this Lionel Denu guy wrote a paper in 2012 and was covering the history of Maxwell's equations and the changes that were done to them. So Ampere's law, Faraday's law, Coulomb's law, and I think one other of Coulomb's as well. What Maxwell changed was basically the how a photon or whatever so-called is like the electric current, and then it has a rotating magnetic field around it. So like following the right-hand rule, and those two vortices intersect at a point, and that charge potential there is what allows the electric field to induce the magnetic field for the propagation. So what Maxwell did mathematically was he added a little conjecture to the equations and said that this with if you add adding this to the equation means that there's no need for it to carry out a there's no need for anything to carry the charge potential, and that the electric field can just self-induce a magnetic field, even though that there's no experimental evidence to prove that.
And on top of that, bro, they just square the negative. Like they take the positive charge. It's M1 times M2. So the negative, they square it, and it magically makes it a fucking positive. So then they have over their R, which is distance squared. And that's another thing I love about Alan. Like, dude, when they show us all these equations, like when you look them up, dude, you got to look into these things and see what these letters and omega and psi and pi and all this stuff stand for. And that's why I love Alan. He's literally looked into this stuff and enlightening us all on it, dude. But then you see the trickery, and then you just want to talk about it. Like it's literally mathematical tricks. Like the same thing as this. Like if you fired a fucking cannon toward a target, mathematically it's never going to get there because you just keep halving the distance, dude. And it's the same thing with their negative charge and their negative electrons, and they just square it, and it makes it positive. They do. It's a common trick, dude, and we're starting to see through it. And I love what Alan does, brother.
Yeah, man. I would second that.
Yeah. Let's see here. So I think that was everything in regards to the math and all that. Was there anything else?
I mean, if you want to talk about LIGO.
Oh yeah. So for the LIGO thing, let me show you. Let me pull up that real quick. See if I can share screen without it shitting the bed on YouTube.
The as-built. It's hilarious. They trying to show us the as-built. Like, don't show me the as-built. Show me the fucking plans before they built the shit. No, you can't, can you? It's hilarious, man. But I'm always curious to see what Alan has to enlighten me with, dude. It's usually good. For anybody who doesn't know, the as-builts are like showing you after the fact how they built it. If they're acting like showing you blueprints, they're lying.
So this paper is from Stephen Crothers, wrote this in 2016. A critical analysis of LIGO's recent detection of gravitational waves caused by the merging black holes. So with his big critiques here is he points out that the data sets are just mathematical abstractions. There's no actual thing to compare quote unquote gravitational wave to, et cetera, et cetera. And he actually points out that the coordinate system that they use to derive the gravitational wave is they use a coordinate system that allows them to not account for anything like permittivity and permeability of a background, which would change the speed of propagation. So when they have a speed that matches c, it's in alignment with Einstein's predictions and all that stuff. Because I think he was the one that originally made the prediction that gravitational wave would propagate at c. So like the coordinate system that they came up with, on Appendix A, yeah, right here. So he goes over the equations that they use, and he transforms it to a different coordinate system that has permittivity and permeability in the background, and the speed of the gravitational wave changes. So he points out here, like a big critique is that the coordinate system that they chose is just arbitrary to fit what they need to reify Einstein and all that.
Good shit, dude. Good shit. And all this transform does is just keep us moving around the sun, dude. That's why it's going to break down when you look anywhere else. Yeah, it's going to help you keep your little motion around the sun and it's literally mathematical trickery, man. It's crazy. That's good shit, brother.
Yeah. And then let's see. So that was for that, and then okay, that was it. That was all I had for the LIGO stuff.
Cool. That's pretty interesting. Do you have a source on that?
Yeah, this guy right here, Stephen Crothers, he has a bunch of papers on mathematical analysis of relativity theory. So one of the more
Yeah, EU. He's a big proponent of the EU, dude. He's been in a couple conferences and he breaks it down. If you want to hear more about it, dude, I'll post it.
yeah, one of the big critiques that he pointed out is that, so I was talking about earlier about the metric tensors and how you can change the initial condition or the boundary condition. So like the interval that describes the space-time coordinate system, or the tensor that describes the conservation laws and that sort of stuff. So what he pointed out was through a mathematical analysis, he pointed out that the metric tensors are derived from the space-time, from Einstein's space-time interval, and that's like a equivalent to a mathematical reification fallacy. It's called a first order invariant intrinsic invariant differential, which means that it's not derived from Einstein's beloved field equations that like they should be. So the first space-time interval is derived from the field equations. Everything's all on the up and up on that. But then they couldn't get the conservation laws out of it because things in Einstein's paradigm, tend to infinity and all that kind of stuff. So they don't have a way. They didn't really have a way to do that. So that's where your boy Paul Lavue came in. So it's called the Lavue-Lifshitz metric, and it's these three dudes came up with this metric to explain the conservation laws on the small scale, so that they could co-opt the Sagnac effect. But they did it deriving the metric solely from Einstein's Einstein's space-time tensor. So it's not from the field equation. So it's what's what do they call it? Hold on, I have to pull up.
It's their best effort, Alan, to conserve and not conserve momentum of light.
Yeah. So when they remember the actual terminology, it's been a minute since I touched on the full covariance issue with the first order intrinsics. So under a process called contraction, what it reveals about these metric tensors is that they're not in the same dimension as what would be required if it was actually describing like a physical thing. They're not part of the initial system. That's a what do they call it? It's a second order. I can't even remember. But yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing that was kind of buried with the history of Einstein's in the math and stuff, because he changed the types of math that he was using, throughout the history of special and general relativity. And the reasons why he was changing that is because he was running into problems where he couldn't establish covariance and stuff. So what these mathematical logical fallacies and do what next, but it actually has no physical meaning because it's derived from a logic fallacy, and it's not. And when you do contraction on it, it's not even in the same dimension to even curve space time or anything like that, like gravitational fields and stuff. Like they completely did it's just nonsense. It gives the appearance of calculation.
Total nonsense, dude. They're trying to conserve. They're trying to tell us that light doesn't conserve momentum, and then have it conserve momentum. It's like, dude, it's exciting to be around a group that understands this shit, dude. Like, I literally put videos out on this shit a long time ago with no response, dude. I put videos out on Ron Hatch. Finally, Bob Nodell noticed it, and it spread a little bit to Austin. Like, dude, I've been trying to preach this shit, dude. Now there's people understand it even better than me, dude. It's actually exciting because I've been trying to show this shit for quite a while without fully understanding it. And then hearing other people talk about it, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then this, we build off each other's ideas and stuff, but it's all written down black and white. You know what I'm saying? It's been there the whole time, dude. It's been there the whole time for us,
Yeah,
man.
and for me, like it's refreshing to find out that old people were actually like legendary G status. They didn't just fuck around. They did like the work. They had the names. They came up with the experiments. They did everything, and then they pushed like the people that control us pushed it all the way so we wouldn't find it. And we were like, oh man, we got to do it. How do we prove it from the beginning all over again? And we're like, oh guys, we don't have to.
They already have.
There's so many people who've already done it. It's great.
Yep, exactly. I linked a video in the chat too from Sky Scholar where Stephen Crothers did his second most recent presentation on his mathematical analysis of relativity, where he goes over the first order or intrinsic invariant differentials and all that. And it's kind of dense. You might have to watch it a couple times, but when you see what he's doing and what the implications are, it's just like, oh, they just made up some stuff so that they could pretend that they're carrying the 3 over, so that it gives the appearance that they're doing legitimate math and all that, but it really has no physical meaning because it's not in the same dimension of the system that it's even being described in, which is like GG, which is I think one of the big reasons that the plasma cosmologists are like, hated or whatever is because they have like the mathematical capability to like refute Einstein, on the just on the merits of math. And that's what this guy does. He's like a mathematical genius, man. Before he got kicked out of academia for pointing out this problem, because this problem was actually pointed out by a couple Russian guys like a long time ago.
Hey, Alan, for being smarter than his professor and being smarter than his supervisors, he gets kicked out.
Right. So people kind of forgot about this first order intrinsic problem. And Crothers was like, hey guys, did you guys know that it doesn't matter? You guys are just role playing. And everyone got mad, kicked him out of academia. But before he got kicked out, he was majoring in he was programming some like solar system models and like all the effects of gravity and all that, like tons of crazy math and stuff. And then he, for fun, one day did a mathematical analysis on general relativity and switched his major to that because he thought that this was going to be like a way more profound way to him to contribute to the world of science and all that, because he found this huge glaring error in the math and it's not real and all that. And yeah, then suddenly his PhD candidature got dropped and all this, and then he ends up battling with the International Gravitational and what's the other word? Gravitational and something committee. And it's like these guys that have like a committee where like they interpret Einstein's field equations and math and all that and like what Einstein really meant, and then they distribute that down to academia, and then you repeat what they say. And like, so this guy went like head to toe with toe to toe with one of those guys, and the guy was just like couldn't refute anything Crothers was saying, and just ultimately ended up saying, you think you're smarter than Einstein, you're dumb as hell. Either capitulate to what we're saying or like, don't expect to go nowhere in life, kid. And Crothers was like, well, I guess I'm going nowhere. And he bounced out. It was awesome. Stephen.
Bro, that's literally.
Yeah, I have a video series on my channel. Yeah, real quick to wrap it up. I have a video series if anyone's interested in checking it out, where I read, because he documented his whole thing with academia and his battle with it and all that. And the administrators at the facilities and stuff, and he's got email exchanges with them, and goes like, I just read the whole story of it and just kind of go over it. It's really fascinating.
Wait, where can I find that? On your channel?
Yeah,
you should just like every time you speak, you should just like publish your EndNote archive and be like, if you want to look at stuff, here's all of them. Otherwise, figure it out, bitch.
Dude, that's so important, man. I mean, that's so fucking important, dude. This is the This is the guy who's like fucking the teacher to any student who's willing to listen, dude. This is one of the machine heads, right? This student is a machine head.
He's a cool dude, bro. I've emailed him a couple times, had some back and forths with him. He subscribed to my YouTube channel, personal account, because he watched the story that I covered on him. I was like, yeah, I covered your story or whatever. Read through it. It was really interesting. And he told me to send him the video, and he ended up subbing to me. So shout out to your boy Steven Crush, dude.
That's awesome, bro. That's fucking awesome.
He's
that
awesome,
doesn't surprise me, Alan, man. That doesn't surprise me. Because like I said, dude, you do a good job of breaking down they make these equations look so complicated. And you gotta have a math background. But still, dude, if they just hide what what everything stands for, but once you look into it, like, whoa, what's this? What's this? What's this? That's why I made my model, bro. I made a refraction model when they're talking about alpha Polaris 69 miles per degree. I just made a fucking my own equation. A refraction equation that fucking 90 miles over 90.
We love you. We love you for that, Brian. That was awesome.
I don't have to tell them what the decimals stand for, but for the people who want to ask what it means, I'm gonna tell you what all these letters stand for. Then you look into it, you see it works. You can cry about it for a minute. You know what I'm saying? But it's just math. In other words, I didn't prove shit. This is exactly how it works. My whole point was to prove that it's just fucking math, assholes. I've made it work on a flat plane. It's just math. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't prove shit. It was more of an overarching point for all these fucking globies who fucking act like the math proves shit.
Yeah, when the math is on their side, they're happy to capitulate to the abstraction of it, but when it directly refutes them, they suddenly don't know how to do math like it, or you didn't do it right, and all this stuff. So it is what it is.
Nice. So we'll wrap up the event, and then I'll kill my stream over here. I'll go to my stream ending phase. I managed to rebuild like my whole OBS panel while this was going on, so it was great. Now I have like my backgrounds and transitions back.
Had to do some adjustments.
Yeah, I have to admit real quick. I have to admit that when Brian mentioned earlier that what was that time's always a constant, right? Because time doesn't change. You can't manipulate time. So what they did was they made light the constant because they knew time was a constant no matter what, right? But then they made it seem like you could manipulate time, and that time would vary with these these atomic clocks and everything. I'm sure everyone else already gets that, but it's weird that I just kind of got that today when Brian said it. Like,
you'd be surprised, dude. Dude, people don't. I mean, dude, like people like Alan and shit, dude, they see through it. It takes a minute, dude, to look into this shit. But dude, after looking into it, it's like when people finally start listening, dude, and then you want to scream it to the rooftops. But that's all they did. They made, instead of time being a constant, which is fucking obvious because it's not even real. You know what I'm saying? It's just math. And then they literally make something real a constant and vary time. Then you have to start bending space, manipulating mass. So they're literally willing to manipulate all of reality to fucking contort with their model. Then it becomes obvious, But I appreciate the prop.
Yeah, and they convinced us that they could maybe manipulate time, or that they could literally manipulate time, or that time's something that we could manipulate. With the whole, idea of time travel and all these other things, like you were saying, Alan, they have to throw all that crap out to get to like the realness of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me that was you guys might have heard me say that I was working on this. The idea was that it would be like a book of like anonymous Illuminati quotes that must have been said. Like somebody must have said this, even though we don't know who it was. But this whole thing's been like designed, and someone must have said some of these things at one point. And I even had Nate over at Geo's convinced that this was the real quote because it sounded real at the time, and I had him look it up on Google for it and shit. It was funny, but I think it went something like the anonymous Illuminati quote would be is, if we can convince man that space is what we create it to be, we will own his mind. But if we can convince him that we can manipulate time itself, we will own his soul.
They own mine for a little while, bro, because I literally had an idea when it first came out that that we could go back in time with just messages. We send light and break off a particle to a sister particle and just keep going 99% of the speed of light and use the prism to Morse code it, and bam. I literally
Yeah.
fucking had an idea that I'm sure I'm not the only one to come up with this, but after watching Through the Wormhole, I mean, I'm an idea man, dude. I like to explore every fucking aspect of everything I could think of. And so I'm like, dude, I've got this, dude. Dude, I'm gonna win a Nobel Prize, bro, because I can literally go back in time. But dude, it was all a fucking illusion, bro. They did own my soul. You know, they own my soul, dude. It's
Yeah.
fucking it's a shaming,
Right.
bro, to look back.
Because it makes concepts like sellable as real, you know, and some concepts are incredible and actually do have like real world applications, like the ether, for instance, and these things. But then they co-opted it and made all the variables something that they could convince other people as what they're actually manipulating or varying and all that. And it's so plain to see once you take a close
It's
look.
even
So
sad, dude.
appreciate.
No, it's sad because think about it, dude. Because I know I ain't the only one who thought of that. If you have entangled particles, and then you send its sister fucking particle at the speed of light, they've got these accelerators, and then time slowing down for all of us. We know that. We've fucking learned Einstein. We know that time's slowing down for us, right? So we're just gonna keep accelerating that, and then run it through a prism, fucking, and it's gonna be in the future, right? This is just a logical conclusion, dude. So, and dude, it's like, but people just are in wow of what they tell us, and then there's a handful of people who just But like I said, I did believe it. But if y'all want to hear a hell of a story, a layman story about LIGO, I could tell you, dude, about actual LIGO and the measurements of it all. And if y'all want to hear it, let me know. If not, I'll shut up, man. Or if y'all want to hear
Well,
everybody else for a minute.
Well, let's end the stream real quick. So actually, since Toby's not going to do it, I'll do it. Everyone listening, you should come hang out to Aether Cosmology. All you people chilling with us now, don't be afraid to bring Glober friends. They are allowed. This is not the ADL. We're gonna try and have this like as a medium place. ADL still be for whatever it is, but as a front-facing, streamed 24/7 conversation place. Everyone should bring everyone here. And here's the wonderful link tree that Toby put up for the place.
Hey, can I make a rule for any Globers that come in, maybe, or just to suggest a strong suggestion that you
No.
really think? Well, I would suggest that, we don't try to interpret Michelson morally as disproving the ether. If you haven't figured that out yet, then don't come here with that bullshit, because that's over. All right, that's gone.
No,
It's
no,
done.
no. You can come
A
here.
warning to all the Globers: don't you come in here and
You
say
can come
this
here
dumb
with
shit.
it and just, it'll give us an opportunity to explain it to you.
The place
Yeah,
is
that
called
argument is
Aether
on topic at
Cosmology.
least. Yeah, at
So
least
if
that
you
argument's on topic.
If you want to come argue the
I'll
ether,
save my LIGO story, Shane. I'll save my LIGO story for your next stream, brother. It's a good one.
or in like 2 seconds when I close this out, when we're sitting here chilling, seems like a better time. So if you want to come to dispute the Aether Cosmology is the place to do it, right?
Yeah, or really.
Flat ethers unite. I just want to add that.
Nice.
Anything else tangentially related, or whatever you want to talk about? Yeah. Thank you, Shane.
Thanks, everyone.
That's cool. That was awesome, bro. That was a good stream, bro. I'm gonna ask him if I can mirror that. That was awesome. Alan always brings it, bro. He brings it, man. But
Yeah.
dude, what did they call that with the when like they had the red something and the green something and then the black something, like they all formed together to make like something big? What was that, dude? But the black dude was like actually like the green Viper or something, and they're like, "Why are you calling me?" He's like, "Why are you calling me Black Viper? I'm Green Viper," because he is black, dude. It was so funny. What was that? What did they all join into to make one big one, dude? I forgot. I had a good joke, but I couldn't remember the name of it, man.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Like Voltron or some shit, like Voltron or I forgot, or Power Ranger. That's what it was, dude. And
Oh, you're talking about the Power Ranger Zords?
He's fucking like Red Ranger, Yellow Ranger, Blue Ranger, and then they're like Black Ranger. Dude's green, but it's a black guy, and he's like, "I'm not Black Ranger, I'm the Green Ranger." And they're like, all right, Black Ranger." That's what he closed out. It reminded me of. It's funny shit, dude. But I got a real good story about LIGO, but I'm gonna save it. But it's really, really good, dude. And it's
Yeah,
like
we're curious.
it's a good one, dude. It's fucking like it's a head scratcher on top of everything else. But it's worth saving. It's worth saving.
Hey, we're not live anymore, Brian. You can tell the story.
Well, we are
Yeah,
live.
I know.
still
All right, I
on,
will. All right.
we are still
I
up
will.
on the main
Oh, we're
live
not live
stream,
on the.
but
Yeah, we're not
Shane
live
and
for the-
Alan
Yeah,
have
good,
ended
good,
their
good.
round
stream.
two. Yeah.
So check this out. So I'm like, dude, I'm practical, right? I've been fucking doing concrete my whole life. I've owned my own company for fucking 20 years. I'm not going to disclose, you could look up my name and get my old company like 10, 20 years ago, but I'm not going to disclose the name of my new company and everything, but it's a small company. I'm not acting like I'm big shit, dude. I do what I need to get by. But I've been doing this my entire life, using auto levels my entire life, gauging water drainage my whole life. I've done mostly little jobs lately, especially, but I've done some big projects, dude. I've done like seawall, big, like over half mile. I've done miles of curb, literally. And we literally had to use the rise over run, but then we had to, you know, change that to feet per second. That's how they do drainage. Is they don't do it in slope; they do it in feet per second. Water drainage or sewage or anything like that. That's why I called out the last fucker who joined Earth Awakenings, like he knew what he was talking about. I'm like, oh, okay, you work sewage, you work all this. How did they measure your slope? And he didn't know. I've called so many fucking assholes out who acting like they know shit because I literally do this shit, right? That's what I do, and doing it my whole life. So when it comes to LIGO, they're showing me these plans that are showing like concave, according to it takes forever to pry it out of them that it's as built. As built. Now I look at the fucking survey, like the survey from the dirt crew, from the as built that they're showing me, and they're different. And I'm pointing this shit out, dude. I've logged a lot of it in some videos, but not all of it. And this is the point: is that if these dirt crews have different information on the surveys than the as built, we can just fucking go there. I'm only about 8 hours away. I used to live right by Livingston, right by Rockia. I lived there for off and on for quite a while. I lived on the West Bank of New Orleans. Our football team played against Livingston. They were actually good at the time. But I'm like, dude, we can literally so easily go measure this. All we have to do, we don't even have to fuck with them at LIGO. All we have to do is just get on the other side of the fucking ditch, and if the ditch is continuous with water, all we have to do is bring up. All I got to do is bring one of my pivot lasers. I don't even have to bring my instruments, which I probably will, but I'll just bring a pivot laser, set it up, it levels out, it spins 360. It's the easiest device imaginable, and then set it up at the beginning, and then measure above the water the beginning, then the middle, then the end, without ever crossing the ditch. I don't got to fucking ask for permission. Any of this. So I've been discussing this with like Rumpus, Blue Marble Science, and all this shit. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, this could prove your globe because I'm assuming that the laser did reach from one side to the other. So you're telling me that the concrete is fucking bowl shaped. And I'm like, I'm calling fucking horse shit because I don't care how you say the as built. I don't care what these plans are showing me, which they're showing a double tangent, which is a whole nother argument. But I'm like, dude, they come out and they give us a fucking benchmark. Then if we're the first ones in, we don't fucking follow these marks. We correct these marks, dude, because we've got the instrumentation and we're not using bullshit electronics at the time that they were. We're using fucking double, triple, quadruple checking our fucking shots. And we know what the fuck is horizontal, because that's what we fucking do. And if we don't get it right, we don't get paid. And so I bank anything that fucking that shit was done just like every other project. And they were given a benchmark and maybe a benchmark at the end that they had to comport to. But either way, it's going to be a steady transition that's flat and fucking straight. But it'd be so easy to distinguish between a globe and a flat earth because all you have to do is measure the height above the water the concrete slab is at the beginning, once in the middle, once at the end. If it's not, it can be sloping. It doesn't have to all be level. I suspect it is level, with the water. But even if it's lower, as long as in the middle, let's say if it's 2 foot at the beginning, this is just throwing a number out there so everybody can understand. If it's 2 foot above the water, let's say 12 foot. If it's 12 foot above the water at the very beginning of the arm, and it's 2 foot at the very end, it's got to be right smack in the middle. Okay, and it's flat. So in other words, if it's 7 foot in the middle, we know that that's a horizontal level transition. That can't work on a globe. It would have to be like 4.5 foot. It'd have to be 2 foot, 12 foot at the beginning, and like 14 3/4 foot in the middle, and then fucking like 22 foot at the end, right? Because it's. I mean, that's not the exact math. I'm just saying that gives you an idea. And so it's so easy to find out. Any motherfucker can do this. And then, dude, I'm discussing with Blue Marble Science, and then, dude, I get a message from him. They done brought concrete in from out. When I'm about to go do this, I tell them that I'm under contract right now. I can't leave. I'm going in the spring. Like a month later, I get a message from Blue, and he shows me a fucking Google Maps. They done brought in concrete from off-site and filled in this ditch. I'm like, what the fucking dude? Are you kidding me? Like, I've got an idea to settle this shit once and for all. I'll be a Glober. Hey, if it shows me, like I said, assuming that the laser makes it from beginning to end, if it's showing globe math, then so be it. I'll fucking switch, because that to me is the best proof. If this is the straightest thing in the universe, and next thing you know, dude, they done brought concrete in off-site to fill in the ditch. Why would they fucking do that? Okay, but then I'm even thinking, fuck it. It doesn't matter if they brought in concrete chunks. If the water's continuous, I can still do it. So I'm not close enough to just go scout it per day. But if somebody's in the area, I don't even think the place is running right now. They can go without even going through the gate. They can just go to the, on the property next to it and look at that ditch. But even if it is filled in, I can just dig to the water table, let it settle for, 24 hours. They're going to complain about that. But if that's if I go all the way down there, I'm getting 3 fucking measurements. And the water table is not going to change over a few miles, but it would be worse evidence if I had to, if I had to clear a little brush. That's one thing, but even still, if I go all the way down there, which I might do anyway, is I'll dig 3 holes, let the water settle. The water table is going to be pretty consistent, for couple hundred miles usually, 100 miles, 50 miles, 20 fucking miles at least, but 3.
That's awesome story. Hey, Brian, we got a couple people that just joined that are Æther enthusiasts, Cyrus and Dyslow. Welcome to the show. It's over. Well, at least part of the show is over. The original, the segment that a couple other people were recording is over, but we're still live. What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, I was in here. I was listening.
Oh, okay. I didn't see
all
it
good
before.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always appreciate your input on the Æther and the stuff from Ken Wheeler. Cyrus, what's up, brother? I don't know if he's here, if he's just listening, but anyway, yeah, that's a cool story, Brian. Yeah, it seems like there's some other people that did some debunks of the LIGO stuff, right? That did a pretty good job already, right?
Yeah, Bev, dude, pointed out the double tangent. That was hilarious. But yeah, shout out to Dysler. Like I said, man, he's quiet. He sits back, dude. But I've been around him for a long time, and when he does talk, dude, he brings it. Dude, he brings it. I've learned a lot from him. He helped put the simple shit in perspective, dude. It did take listening to it a lot, to shout out him. Cyrus, shout out to him, bro. He's a machine head.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Wait, was that Cyrus saying appreciate that, or someone else? Is he here?
No,
Or he's
no.
got some Æther.
What up? What up?
What's up? What's up, Cyrus?
What's happening, man?
Yeah, you missed the first part of the show at least, but we're still live on the Aether Cosmology.
I did. I'm disappointed.
Well, it's not like that. We can't talk about Æther right now. We're still live. It's still continuing from the channel.
What are you guys doing? Like an event? Sort of think of it.
Word salad, man. Word
We did
salad,
an
bro.
event. It's kind of
There you
like
go.
a unofficially over, but not really.
Oh,
It's
We're still
over,
live.
but the stream's still live. The stream will be live until I don't know, whenever.
cool.
You've been keeping it running, right?
Indefinitely.
Like 24/7,
Yeah,
right?
for the most part. Yeah, for the most part. But I don't have it like set up to do an automatic like new stream or anything like that yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so people could jump in here if they have like Ether revelations or whatever and just do their own thing, do a little live stream on your own or whatever. I thought about doing that myself.
This channel's dangerous, bro. This is like any smart people in the world, agree or disagree. This is where they would be right now, bro. This is like the best conversation to be had for fucking smart people, dude. They're gonna do the best they can to squash it, dude. There's nothing better being talked about right now, right here. That's mine. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shane was mentioning, I think last time we talked about this, there's like a nuance to it. It does take a certain intelligence to even conceptually accept that there might be something like a background medium that, you know, permeates all organic life and all non-organic life, and that somehow could be, you know, this constant that we can't prove scientifically, but it seems like it's definitely there in so many ways. So yeah, it takes a little bit more of a deeper look in acceptance of our reality to talk about this on the levels that people here can.
Double-edged sword, though, brother. We can use it for our model too. That's why I'm trying to model this shit, dude. Like I said, I'm close, but it's a double-edged sword. If they want to bend fucking space, dude, anybody can fucking model shit. If you could just bend fucking shrink whatever you need to, bend whatever the fuck you need to. Like it's
Well, that's one of
literally
the
a joke.
interesting
Once
things.
you learn
It
about
seems
it,
like,
right?
yeah, the globe model or you know, quantum mechanics and all these like substitutions for what seems to be indicating there's an ether, whatever you want to call it, you know, and like they have to come up with a way of saying it without using the word, right? With quantum foam and all that kind of shit.
What I thought was hilarious is people talking about science proving things with the name that backs up a field of science that deals in fucking probability. Like, dude, you got a name that you got a name that deals in fucking and probability, and you're fucking talking about proof, dude. It's like, all right, is this some kind of fucking joke, dude? Am I the only one
Dude
who gets
believes
this,
in
dude?
dude believes in probability clouds of nonsense material with 99% free space, and it's definitely there. Don't worry about it.
But everything's proven 100%. Like with the on the other cheek, say that science proves things 100%, and fucking, but you know, my name backs up science that deals in fucking probability, dude. That does anyone else see the fucking humor in that? Is it just me?
Well, yeah, and just that the fact that modern quantum physics is all about the ether, right, Cyrus? Wouldn't you say? Did he leave? Is he here?
Oh, looks like we lost him.
That sucks.
You mean the?
But yeah, that people that understand what's going on with quantum physics in the modern day application of what they're talking about, it's like totally embracing the ether, which is interesting. I think that'd be funny to try to come up with a package of quantum physics or quantum dynamics that is like totally up to date and like the leading edge of what they're doing with this concept right now, and then show how it's like all ether based, and then talk to QE about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you how to do it. Just act like it's scientifically proven. Teach me that science, you know, brainwash me that science is this and that, which I'm good with that. I'm good with the facts and the cause and effect, and then tell me that science proven that light's a particle. And my brain literally kind of has to scramble like a Jeopardy board, like when they like it doesn't make sense to me. But hey, if science is fucking proving it, how can I argue that? Then you find out otherwise, dude. It's fucking disgusting, dude. And you look back at it and you're like, I'm literally looking back at what this motherfucking dude taught me. And then I question him fucking 4 years later. And then he tells me fucking otherwise. And I only do that after him questioning me. Like when I'm trying to tell him what I know, what I've researched. And you're going to stump me and say, experiment, you say. Like fucking, okay, what's the hypothesis, dude? Or fucking what you taught me all these years So that's why I had to express my disgust earlier, dude. I fucking literally got lied to, dude. I'm fucking pissed off at me falling for the dude. Do you know how I feel? The Globers lied to me. I mean, the Globe model, these fucking, whether they knew it or not, they were lying to me. I was mad at myself. I wasn't mad at them for teaching me this shit. I was mad at myself for not fucking recognizing it. I deal with fucking slope on a day-to-day basis, dude. So I was literally disgusted with myself. Now, as a woke person, I fell for it again, dude. And now I'm double fucking mad that this motherfucking dude lied to me, dude. And I'm double mad at myself for fucking not seeing it sooner, dude. But
Yeah,
you know,
when I was talking to that guy that we just had over at Geo's, the model builder, we call him Labette, the beast, right? Now we decided to call him Labette because he's such a beast with his information and his programming knowledge and his experience, his history, working for science, working for a space agency, and realizing that all the strips of data or pictures that he was supplying were taken from airplanes, and that he was making up excuses. What I was getting to, he was making up excuses, he said, to try to, like, just defend the globe model without even thinking. He was just doing it, he said, because he just assumed that it couldn't possibly not be a ball. And then, like, everything started piling on with these triggers of the interferometry showing him that it couldn't be the case. And then the GPS or the Sagnac effect and everything was just like the final straw for, he used to be the guy that the friends of his would go to for the globe proof, and, like, he would just reiterate what he thought. But he even knew the moon landing was fake. He knew the ISS was fake because he's an image analyst professionally, and he knew that. But he was still somehow justifying it in his mind. So he was laughing at himself for believing it for so long.
yeah, bro. Yeah, he's a great addition, bro. That's why I said this ain't the first time you've brought some intelligent points of view to the discussion, bro. You're good at that, bro. Real good at that. Hats off for that, bro.
Yeah, I'm good at recognizing when people know what they're talking about. For not necessarily for coming up with innovative new things on my own. Well, I mean, I guess I could, but not in the math area
No,
as much
I
as you
wasn't
guys.
dogging you for that, bro. I mean, I've literally, you've got a reputation for, Brenner and fucking, and then that one dude who I love talking to, man, with a different model, a different concept, man. This dude was like, there's a breath of fresh
E1?
air talking to him, dude. Yeah. And then this
Yeah,
dude,
E1. I
you
propped
gotta
him up
tell
all
it
the time.
like you're a sifter, bro. You're a sifter, dude. You let the trash float to the bottom. And no offense, I'm not calling anybody trash, but dude, you gotta you like a recruiter, you a scout, bro. You know good shit when you see it, bro.
I try.
That's awesome.
Yep, and I appreciate your work. Appreciate your appreciation always, for sure.
I appreciate the circle jerk of appreciation going on right now.
Wait till y'all hear this guy. Hey, wait till y'all hear this guy, bro. This dude has literally got fucking like millions, like between 1 and 2 million fucking data points on GPS flights, bro. He's got them in the north. He's got them in the south. He's got the fucking the angles of depression up to like 10 kilometers, bro. He's got so much data, bro. And he's a model builder. Literally, it's like, dude, this is what we've been lacking, dude. And I sent him a DM and I was like, dude, I'm working on a model as we speak and shit, dude. And fucking, I'll give you what I got, give you what you got, dude. It's like, dude, it's like we need to collaborate, bro, and feed off each other's ideas. This dude's the real fucking deal, bro.
Yeah,
He's dangerous. Anytime somebody gets kicked out of shit, dude, then you know that they're probably doing something right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he didn't necessarily get kicked out, but they did ban everybody from getting the data that he downloaded 2 million actual flight paths GPS pings from, and he already got enough to work with, but now they won't allow access to anybody. And it could have been the timing on it, he said, was a little strange. Like, all of a sudden, poof, it was gone. Like, he was like, oh shit, I can't compare what you say you're doing to what you're actually doing any longer. Oh, okay, well, I already got 2 million of them to show everybody. What did he say? He was showing that the southern flight, it was the most of the southern flights were all by like 1 or 2 different planes, and he tracked them at like over 1,000 miles, 1,000 kilometers an hour. It shows that they're actually flying faster to make up the time that they're supposed to be going there. And then the Globers try to jump on that. Look at this. There's the time, and and of course, we're getting real data. You think they're lying about their data? Yes, they are.
No,
They're lying
yeah,
about the
dude,
data.
he's literally pointing out the discrepancies of
Yep.
how it's over land and how it's a distance before it cuts off, dude. And the fact that it cuts off is bullshit. But dude, toward the edge of that, they can